You already own the bottle sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now, and the Amish have been quietly using it for 17 different garden jobs, while the rest of us keep driving to the garden center for products that cost 20 times more. Plain white vinegar. That's it. 17 uses coming up, and the one near the end, number 16 specifically, almost nobody outside those Pennsylvania farm communities knows about, and it might be the single best thing you do for your soil this fall. The garden center isn't going to tell you, because every use you learn here is a product they stop selling you. Before we start, drop your growing zone in the comments. I want to see where you're watching from. Zone 6 here in eastern Ohio, and I'll tell you, I learned half of this list the expensive way after my wife handed me a receipt from the nursery back in 2019 that had me sitting down on the porch step. Let's get into it. Number 1. Killing weeds in driveway cracks and patio joints. This is the one that proves the whole list, because you'll see it work in about 3 hours. Household vinegar runs around 5% acetic acid, and acetic acid pulls moisture right out of plant leaves on contact. The University of Maryland Extension has published on this, noting that household-strength vinegar burns down young broadleaf weeds effectively when applied on a hot, sunny day. You pour it straight from the jug into a cheap pump sprayer, add a tablespoon of dish soap per gallon so it sticks, and spray the weeds between noon and 2 when the sun is hammering. Don't water it in. Don't spray on a cloudy day. The leaves go brown by supper time. But here's where folks go wrong, and it leads us straight into number 2. Number 2. Why your vinegar weed spray failed last time. If you sprayed weeds and they came back in 10 days, it's because vinegar burns the top, not the root, on anything mature. The fix, the Amish use, is repetition and timing. Hit the weed when it's young, under 4 inches, and hit it again 7 days later before it can push new green out of the crown. On dandelions and thistle with deep taproots, you accept that you're managing, not eradicating, unless you also dig. That honesty alone saves you from buying that $40 jug of so-called natural weed killer, which, if you read the back label, is mostly the same acetic acid you already have. Therefore, let's talk about something the garden center really doesn't want you knowing. Number 3. Cleaning rust off your hand tools. Pruners, trowels, the old hoe that's been leaning in the shed since your father-in-law passed it down. Soak the metal heads overnight in a jar of straight white vinegar. The acid dissolves iron oxide, which is the rust, without eating the good steel underneath. In the morning, scrub with a balled-up piece of aluminum foil, rinse, dry hard with a rag, and rub a thin coat of vegetable oil on to seal. I brought back a pair of whisk pruners that I'd written off as garbage. But rust is the easy win. The next one is what changed how I plant blueberries. Number 4. Testing your soil pH without a kit. Scoop a couple tablespoons of soil into a cup, add half a cup of vinegar. If it fizzes and bubbles, your soil is alkaline, above 7. If nothing happens, do the second half of the test, which I'll get to in a minute. This isn't lab precise, but it tells you in 30 seconds whether your hydrangeas are going to sulk or your blueberries are going to die. I wasted 2 seasons and about $90 on blueberry bushes before somebody at a Lancaster County produce stand told me to try the vinegar cup first. So that brings us to the partner test. Number 5. The baking soda half. Take a fresh scoop of soil, wet it down, sprinkle baking soda on top. If that fizzes, your soil is acidic, below 7. No fizz on either test means you're roughly neutral, and most vegetables will be happy. 2 pantry items, $0, and you've replaced a $15 meter that needs batteries you'll forget to buy. Therefore, once you know your pH, the next use becomes obvious. Number 6. Acidifying water for acid-loving plants. Azaleas, rhododendrons, blueberries, gardenias, hollies, even tomatoes appreciate a slight tilt toward acid. 1 tablespoon of white vinegar per gallon of water, stirred in, lowers the pH of typical tap water down into the range those plants actually drink from. Once a month during the growing season is plenty. Don't do it every watering, because you'll overshoot and lock out nutrients. My neighbor's gardenia went from yellow and miserable to dark green in about 5 weeks doing nothing else. But indoor plants have a vinegar trick too. Number 7. Killing gnats around houseplants and seedling trays. Those tiny black flies hovering over your seed-starting setup are fungus gnats, and they lay eggs in damp potting mix. Pour an inch of apple cider vinegar in a small dish, add 2 drops of dish soap, set it next to the trays. The gnats can't resist the smell, the soap breaks the surface tension, and they drown. You'll have a dish full of them by morning. Cheaper than yellow sticky traps, and it actually works on the adults laying the next generation. Therefore, while we're on pests, number 8. Cleaning the hummingbird feeder. Skip the bleach the box tells you to use. A solution of 1 part white vinegar to 4 parts hot water, swirled in the feeder with a bottle brush, kills mold and dissolves the crusty sugar residue in the feeder ports without leaving anything toxic for the birds. Rinse twice with plain water. Do this every refill in summer heat. The fermentation that kills hummingbirds happens fast above 80 degrees, and a clean feeder is the whole game. But your bird bath needs attention too. Number 9. Scrubbing the bird bath and stone planters. That green slime is algae, and vinegar at full strength, poured on and scrubbed with a stiff brush after you've dumped the water out, lifts it off concrete and stone without leaving a residue that'll hurt the next robin that lands there. Rinse well. Refill. 10 minutes of work. No $12 bottle of bird-safe cleaner required. Therefore, let's get into the items that protect what you've already planted, because I know plenty of you watching have established gardens, and you're wondering when I'm going to stop talking to the beginners. Number 10. Deterring deer, rabbits, and raccoons from established beds. This one you can do this weekend on the garden you already have. Soak rags or old strips of burlap in straight white vinegar, then hang them on tomato cages, fence posts, or sticks pushed into the ground around the perimeter of your beds, about every 6 feet. The smell reads as danger to deer and rabbits, and they steer wide. You re-soak the rags every 5 to 7 days, or after a hard rain. I started doing this on my hosta bed in 2021 after a doe and 2 fawns ate it down to nubs in one night. The hostas came back, and the rags kept the deer in the woods where they belong. But there's a use for those same established beds that goes deeper. Number 11. Refreshing tired potting soil in containers you don't want to dump. If you've got big patio pots, the kind that take 2 bags of soil and a strong back to refill, you don't have to start from scratch every spring. Mix 1 cup of white vinegar into 2 gallons of water and drench the pot thoroughly until it runs out the bottom. This flushes out built-up fertilizer salts that crust on the surface and poison roots over time. Let it drain for a full day. Then top dress with 2 inches of compost, and you're back in business. Saves you the cost of fresh potting mix and the backache. Therefore, while you're standing at those containers. Number 12. Cleaning the white crust off terracotta pots. Those chalky deposits are mineral salts from your water and fertilizer leaching through the clay. Soak the empty pot in a bucket of half vinegar, half water for an hour, then scrub with a stiff brush. The pot comes out looking like the day you bought it. Do this in fall before you store them, and you'll add years to pots that crack faster when salts build up in the clay. But here's one for the vegetable garden that I bet you've never heard. Number 13. Extending the life of cut flowers and fresh-cut herbs from your garden. 2 tablespoons of white vinegar plus 2 tablespoons of sugar in the vase water. The vinegar kills the bacteria that clog the stems, the sugar feeds the bloom. Zinnias, dahlias, sunflowers cut from your own beds will hold 3 to 5 days longer. Change the water every 2 days and trim a 1/4 inch off the stems. That bouquet you grew yourself deserves to last, and it costs you nothing. Therefore, let's get to the cleaning job nobody enjoys. Number 14. Cleaning sap and pitch off your pruners after a hard day. After you've pruned apple, plum, or pine, the blades get gummy and stop cutting clean, which spreads disease between cuts. Wipe the blades down with a rag soaked in straight white vinegar. The sap softens and lifts in seconds. Then dry, sharpen if needed, and oil. A clean cut heals faster on the tree, and clean pruners don't carry fire blight from one branch to the next. But the next one is the one I almost left out, and I'm glad I didn't. Number 15. Removing hard water stains from glass greenhouse panels and cold frame lids. If you've got a cold frame, a small greenhouse, or even cloches over your seedlings, the glass gets cloudy from spray and rain, and you lose light, which means slower growth in early spring. Straight vinegar in a spray bottle, sprayed on, left for 5 minutes, wiped with newspaper. The glass goes crystal clear. More light to your seedlings means stronger transplants, which means a better harvest in July. Now, here's the one I promised you, the one almost nobody knows. Number 16. Reviving a struggling compost pile that's gone anaerobic. This is the one I learned from an old Amish farmer outside Sugar Creek, Ohio, and I have never seen it written up in any garden magazine. If your compost pile smells sour, like vomit or rotten eggs, instead of like rich earth, it's gone anaerobic, meaning the wrong bacteria took over and the pile has compacted into a wet, dead mat. Most people give up and start over. Don't. Turn the pile with a fork to add air, then mix 1 cup of white vinegar into a 5-gallon bucket of water and pour it slowly across the turned pile. The mild acid shifts the bacterial balance, knocks back the anaerobic colonies, and within about a week, the smell comes back to earthy, and the pile starts heating again. The old-timers figured this out generations before there was a name for the microbiology. You won't find this on the bag of compost starter that costs $18 at the garden center, because they're selling you a packet of microbes you can produce for free in your own pile with a splash from your kitchen cupboard. Try it this weekend on a pile you'd written off. Therefore, one more, and then I want to hear from you. Number 17. Preserving the cut ends of wooden garden stakes, tomato cages, and trellis legs that rot in the soil. Before you push a wooden stake into the ground in spring, stand the bottom 6 inches in a jar of straight white vinegar overnight. The acid kills the fungal spores and soft rot bacteria that would otherwise start eating the wood from the soil line up. A stake treated this way lasts 2 to 3 seasons longer than an untreated one. The Amish do this with bean poles and pea trellises every spring. No creosote, no chemical sealer, no $20 pack of plastic stakes, just a jar and a night of patience. So there it is, 17 jobs, 1 bottle, and somewhere between $200 and $300 a year that quietly stays in your pocket instead of in the register at the garden center. You didn't learn anything fancy today. You took back what was already yours, knowledge that used to pass over the back fence between neighbors before everything got packaged and sold back to you at a markup. If you're the kind of person who refuses to overpay for what a $2 jug already does, you're in the right place. Tell me your zone in the comments, and tell me which of these 17 you're going to try first. I read every one, and I want to know if it's the compost trick at number 16, because that's the one I get the most questions about. Hit subscribe if you want to keep recovering the practical know-how the marketing folks have spent 40 years burying. Next time, I'm going to walk you through 9 uses for plain baking soda in the vegetable garden, including the one that finally stopped the powdery mildew on my squash leaves after 3 summers of losing the whole crop. I'll see you then. Before you click away though, I want to give you a little more, because the truth is, 17 was the round number that fit the title, but the real list the Amish keep in their heads is closer to 30, and a few of the ones I left out are too useful to leave sitting in my notebook. Consider what follows the bonus round, the part where I tell you the things I learned standing in a kitchen in Lancaster County in the fall of 2019, watching a woman named Mrs. Stoltzfus pour vinegar into a chipped enamel basin while she explained, without ever once raising her voice, why her tomato plants outproduced her neighbors by a margin of nearly 40 pounds per row. The first thing she told me had nothing to do with the soil at all. It had to do with the seeds themselves. Before she plants anything that has a hard outer coat, morning glories, okra, nasturtiums, beets, she soaks them for exactly 6 hours in a solution of 1 tablespoon of vinegar per cup of warm water. The mild acid softens the seed coat just enough that germination jumps from somewhere around 60% up into the high 90s. She showed me her records, written in pencil in a composition book she'd been keeping since 1987, and the difference was right there in the margins, year after year, row after row. Seed companies have known this for over a century. The first published research on acidic seed scarification I could find dates back to a USDA bulletin from 1911, written by a man named Lister Dewey, who was studying fiber crops at the time. The technique never made it into the glossy seed catalogs because, frankly, there's no money in telling you your old seeds will sprout fine if you treat them right. There's a lot of money in selling you fresh packets every March. The second bonus use is one I almost didn't believe until I tried it myself. If you have a problem with squirrels digging up newly planted bulbs in the fall, tulips especially, and you've tried the cayenne pepper trick and the chicken wire trick and the human hair trick that your aunt swore by, try this instead. Soak a handful of cotton balls in undiluted apple cider vinegar, tuck them into the soil about 2 inches deep around the perimeter of your bulb bed, and cover them lightly. The smell, which fades to nothing for human noses within about 12 hours, stays sharp in a squirrel's sensitive olfactory system for nearly 2 weeks. I planted 240 tulip bulbs in my front bed in October of 2021, and I lost exactly 3, all of which I'm pretty sure I planted too shallow. My neighbor planted 90 bulbs the same week, the same variety, from the same supplier, and by Thanksgiving she had 11 left. The cotton ball method costs about 11 cents per bed. The commercial squirrel repellent at the hardware store down the road from her costs $19.95 per bottle and, in her words, works for about 6 days before the rain washes it off. The third bonus is for anyone who has ever fought clay soil, which is to say roughly 40% of you, based on the comments I've been reading for the last 2 years. Heavy clay is alkaline almost by default, sitting somewhere between 7.5 and 8.2 on the pH scale, and most of the vegetables you actually want to grow, tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, blueberries, carrots. Prefer something closer to 6 to 6.8. The standard advice from the garden center is to buy elemental sulfur, which costs about $14 for a small bag and takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to actually change your soil chemistry. The Amish method is faster and almost free. 2 cups of white vinegar in 2 gallons of water, poured slowly over a 4-foot by 4-foot square of garden bed, will drop the pH by between half a point and a full point within 72 hours. You retest with a $5 paper test kit, and you adjust from there. Mrs. Stoltzfus told me her mother used this method to grow blueberries on land that the county extension agent in 1962 told her would never support an acid-loving crop. She had 9 bushes producing into the 1990s. The fourth bonus, and this is the one that surprised me the most, is for fruit tree care. If you have an apple, pear, or plum tree that gets sooty mold on the bark, that black, greasy-looking coating that shows up, especially on the lower trunk and the inside of branch crotches, a 1 to 4 solution of white vinegar and water, brushed on with an old paintbrush in the late dormant season, will lift it cleanly within a week. Sooty mold itself doesn't kill the tree, but it's almost always a sign that you have a population of aphids, scale, or mealybugs higher up in the canopy, producing honeydew that drips down and feeds the fungus. Cleaning the bark gives you a clear view of what's actually happening, and it also removes the overwintering spores, so next season's outbreak is significantly smaller. There's an orchardist in Holmes County, Ohio, named Eli Yoder, who's been managing 14 heritage apple trees this way since his father handed the orchard down to him in 1994. He has never sprayed a commercial fungicide. His oldest tree, a Roxbury russet, was planted by his grandfather in 1948 and still produces somewhere between 4 and 6 bushels a year. The fifth bonus is a small one, but it saved me real money. If you start seeds indoors under grow lights or on a windowsill, you've probably dealt with that white, crusty buildup on the rim of your seed starting trays and on the surface of the soil. That's mineral salts from your tap water. And over the course of 6 or 8 weeks of bottom watering, those salts concentrate to levels that can actually burn the delicate roots of seedlings. A weekly flush with water that has 1 teaspoon of vinegar per gallon mixed in dissolves those salts and carries them out the drainage holes. I lost an entire flat of 60 pepper seedlings in March of 2020 because I didn't know this. The next year I started using the vinegar flush and lost 2 seedlings out of 72, both to damping off, not salt burn. The sixth and final bonus is the one I want you to remember if you remember nothing else from this entire video. Keep your vinegar in glass, not in the plastic jug it came in, if you're going to store it for more than a few months. The acetic acid will slowly leach plasticizers out of the container, and while the levels are low enough that nobody's calling it a health emergency, those compounds will absolutely affect the soil biology when you pour the vinegar onto your garden. A half-gallon mason jar with a plastic lid, kept in a cool, dark cabinet, will hold vinegar at full strength for years. Mrs. Stoltzfus had jars in her root cellar that were older than I am, and the vinegar in them still cleared a copper penny in under a minute.